So the SNES Classic, we talked last week about a wasn't really a full hack. It was kind of a workaround way of adding new games to the SNES Classic with a very long process that involved a little bit of Python coding that only added one game at a time. And it seemed very dangerous, not very intuitive at all. Like it was like a 20-step process to add one game. So very time consuming. And I advise that, anyone wanting to hack their game, just wait, or hack their classic system, just wait until the full Hack Chi 2 version comes out, and you can do pretty much anything on here that you can do on the NES Classic. So I'm proud to announce here that that option is now available. Now you can, depending on how large the games are, you can add anywhere from 200 to 300 games on the Super Nintendo Classic. The reason why you can't load all, it's something like, it's over 700 games. It's actually, it's really strange. I want to say the NES, I don't know which one's bigger, but the NES and Super NES, they're within like 20 games as far as how many games were released, at least in North America. So that's kind of neat that they're that close as far as the size of the games library. Of course, the SNES games are much bigger. They go anywhere from, I want to say, half a meg to 4 megs in size. And you've only got 300 megabytes of space to deal with. You also have to throw into account how large of a thumbnail of the game picture are you going to add, if you're going to add one. And I suggest that you do, just so that the added games don't look out of place among the games that are already on there. You can take those games off if you want. You can back them up onto your computer and add them back later. It's a neat process. It's fun. Definitely follow other YouTube videos that tell you how to do that, or just go to Cluster's official site that explains how to do it. But once you get going, it's really simple to do. And from what I understand, all of the functions work. I even think that there's a hack to, you can add new borders to it.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. Because one thing I was like, so I don't usually play with borders. I'm cool with the black lines on the side of the screen. I kind of find anything else to be a bit distracting. That's why that was one thing I didn't like about the Super Game Boy. It forced you to use a border of some kind, and I'm just like, just let me stretch the image out. It's not gonna ruin the experience for me if you just let me zoom in instead of forcing me to use a border. And then the Game Boy Player came out for GameCube, and it lets you do that. It lets you zoom in, and those frames are kind of boring on there anyway. But I just don't use frames. But I found it interesting that there's only about a dozen frames on the Super Nintendo Classic, and I thought, well, it'd be cool if they had like 20 different frames for the 21 games that are on there. But they don't. They don't have enough. So if you want to add more frames, you can. Of course, you can add other emulators. In fact, if you're going to be adding new Super Nintendo games to this, I recommend you add what's called RetroArch. It is a multi-core emulator, and just load the Super Nintendo core. Not going to go into the details here about how you do that, but when you watch these videos and they mention that, follow those instructions on how to load RetroArch with a Super Nintendo core, because what that will do is that will use the RetroArch emulator when the Super Nintendo Classic emulator won't work for that game. And I've seen it work on the NES Classic. It's seamless. You don't even know when it steps in to do its magic. So certain games, I think, games like Castlevania 3, which had extra chips in it to have better sound. I think that game needs the RetroArch NES core install in it for it to work on your classic. So definitely do that step if you're going to be adding more Super Nintendo games. You can also add other emulator cores to it. You can, do Game Boy, NES, Genesis, Game Gear, pretty much everything. Going up to, I don't think the Nintendo 64 core or the PS1 core works that well. I could be wrong on that, but you're probably not going to get very good performance out of those emulators. I would just do anything from 95 and earlier if you want to turn this into an emulation box. But do remember, you've only got 300 megabytes to work with. That is not a lot of space. I know personally, I'm just going to go find top 100 Super Nintendo games and do it that way. And but everything works. The save states work. The rewind feature works. I'm curious if the demo feature works, because apparently when you've been playing the Super Nintendo Classic for a little while, when the demo plays, a little Super Mario World Mario will appear on screen, and he'll just go over and bump a game like it's a block, and it looks like it loads the game, and it'll go into like this demo mode where it will play your gameplay, like it'll play like what you've been playing of the game. I think it only works if you've got a save state, because I tried it the other day and it was not playing the way I was playing. But I think that's neat if you've got a save state. It kind of remembers like, hey, this is what you did in this game just as a demo, as like an arcade demo. So I think that's really cool. That'd be cool to have like running in the background or something at a game party. But yeah, it's fully hackable now. It's open to what you'd like it to do. Of course, if you have an NES Classic, you can do all of this also. I don't think you can do borders though. I don't think you can do like the new features that are specific to the Super NES Classic. I don't think that's transferable to the NES Classic. I could be wrong, but I haven't heard anything like that. So, what do you think of this?
I think it took them too long. I think they were just taking their sweet time. Just recline, just like, oh, we'll get this hacked. There's no worry. They finally get it done. Also, another thing that the Hack Chi 2 adds is, I don't know if this bugs you or not, but it adds a way to go back to the home selection of games.
Yes.
So that you don't have to get up every time and hit reset on the actual console.
Right. You could take the Super Nintendo controller that it comes with. Let's say you want to make it if I press up and L at the same time, it's like pressing the home button, or I say the home button on a Wii Classic controller if it's connected, but it's basically like going up and hitting reset. So yeah, that's a really neat tool if you don't have a Wii Classic controller, or if you're playing 2-player. You can just switch games that way, or just save the state.
Yes.
So yeah.
This is a cool feature. Yeah.
And you could do that on the NES Classic. You could make a shortcut. It's funny when this happens though, because like I'm getting to the point where, so of course people are talking about like, hey, what happens when the N64 Classic is going to be released, and are they going to go further? Are they going to do a GameCube Classic? What games are they going to have on it? And I'm just kind of like, well, as we have seen with these two systems now, it's kind of a moot point, because it's going to be hacked. It's going to be something available. I heard a rumor. I heard it from one other podcast. I don't know what their source was, but they said that when they first got into this, there was like a message from a programmer at Nintendo basically saying, hey, if you're seeing this, you're probably going to add games to this. Have fun. Is basically what the message said. So yeah, Nintendo, it may be just the programmer having fun. I really don't think Nintendo would be encouraging you to do this, but it is pretty obvious they really just don't care if you do this. So, pretty safe to say, with future classic systems that come out, you're going to be able to do this exact same thing. So it's kind of crazy just listening to some other channels are like, oh, what do you want on the N64 Classic? Well, I want this game and I want that game. It's like, well, just if it's not on there, put it on yourself. Like a lot of people, complain that Chrono Trigger wasn't on here, that there's plenty more RPGs. One genre that is strangely missing from the Super Nintendo Classic, there's no beat 'em ups.
Yeah.
And there's aside from the Turtles games, there's none of the Final Fight games, which was kind of like an answer to Streets of Rage on the Genesis.
Was Double Dragon not on there?
There was a Double Dragon. There was a version of Battletoads on here. I mean, I love beat 'em ups. I especially love 16 beat 'em ups because that's kind of where the genre peaked. So there's
pretty sad.
And there's no shooters either. I mean, Star Fox, I guess, kind of counts, but I'm talking about like a 2D, either side-scrolling or up-scrolling
Contra 3
shooter. I'm talking about spaceship shooters, like R-Type, or something like that. Because those were also, there were some on the Super Nintendo that were worth looking at. So there definitely were. I mean, I love the added RPGs that they put on there, but you drank way too much of that stuff. So.
I was going to say, like, 10 minutes ago, I was going to say something, I was like, I think it's having the reverse effect on me, because I was actually getting a little tired, and now I have the complete and total urge to just move around. And I'm remembering that ADD plus energy drinks equals I'm going to be moving for the rest of this podcast.
So, don't mind him. He's just rocking around.
I don't have to go to the bathroom.
Right.
This is just my body doing...
Nor is he bored,
whatever.
I believe.
No, I'm not bored. I literally just started doing this without really thinking about it.
Yeah. So, you can also do a folder structure with this. I personally just like to put things in alphabetical orders, all the A's, all the B's, all the numbered ones. So yeah. So you have a Super Nintendo Classic, and I think more are coming out to GameStop. Apparently, GameStop got a low stock compared to other stores. Some stores I heard had like somewhere around 50 in stock, like Targets and Walmarts. So GameStop kind of got the low end on their shipments. So I think they're getting more this week. More probably heading to those other stores. So get one if you want to do this with turning it into your own ROM box. It's fun. It's a lot of fun, I have to admit.